Genetic math? If you say so. When I was a sophomore in high school, our biology teacher gave us a genetic math assignment. We were to use our parents' blood types to determine our possible blood types, and then confirm our work by typing our blood in class. This was before current biohazard practices. I'm adopted, and knew its implications on the assignment. But my teacher didn't ask. And I was looking forward to having a little fun. He wasn't the worst teacher, but I didn't care for him. I'd been a blood donor, so I knew I was a B+. And based on the assignment, that was not possible. Typing our blood involved pricking our finger, putting blood on 3 separate glass slides, and applying a drop of a reactant on each slide. One reactant identified A, one B, and one positive, negative. Of course, all 3 indicated, so I showed the teacher my work with a confused look. Teacher, you've obviously messed up your test. Each reactant goes on only one slide. Me, yes sir, that's what I did. Teacher, well, something isn't quite right. Let's test again. Together. Quote. We test again. The result was the same. Teacher, I'm sorry. Someone must have mixed all these reactants. Let's get new bottles and test again. So I prick my fingers a 3rd time. Same result. Now the teacher is getting a little nervous. He's stammering a bit. I just look at him, waiting to see what he'll say. At this point, it's worth noting my biology teacher had only one volume setting. Loud. Any conversation he ever had with any student was clearly heard by the whole class. Teacher. Do you perhaps have anyone you call uncle, who isn't really your uncle? Quote. Me. Oh sure. Uncle Jim is really my second cousin, once removed on my mother's side. Teacher. No. I mean, does your mom have any close male friends besides your dad? Quote. Me. Confused look. Teacher. So, I guess what I'm trying to say. Quote. At this point I'd had my fun. My teacher had beads of sweat on his brow and lip. I interrupted him. Oh, of course. I'm adopted. That was the last year he gave that assignment. Edit. Formatting. This is hilarious. But surely it would have been more tactful on the teacher's part to just say, oh, one of your parents probably made a mistake about their blood type. Surely that's 1000% better than just asking flat out a child if they have a potential illegitimate father. Lol. That's a good story. But that is a dangerous thing for the teacher to do. You might have saved him from exposing an unfaithful wife or a kid that was adopted but didn't know it in the future. I did this experiment in first-year biology at uni. I was told that result I got wasn't possible because it is so rare, and got low marks. I was so pissed about this that when I donated blood later that year and got a donor card with my blood type, I went back and showed that tutor. Lol. Too late to change my marks. But at least they admitted they were wrong. To this day, I'm still salty about that mark. Lol. I remember doing that exercise in school, too. Not as exciting results as yours, though. A lot of things used to be assumed back in the day. Assignments like this can be really tricky. I knew a Spanish teacher who would have students make a family tree so that they could learn the Spanish names of all of the relatives. Some kids were only able to fill out one side or the other for various reasons. Other kids were asking the name for step-siblings, half-siblings, etc. I think having kids find out their blood type is actually kind of a cool assignment. Minus the obvious safety hazards. In that it is really authentic. If OP's mother was type O, the teacher would have an even harder time coming up with an explanation. Wonderful. This reminds me of that video where the girl gets a phone call in class and it's a setup where the caller pretends to be the OBGYN and tell her she's pregnant while the teacher looks like he wants to die. During my career in medical genetics, I've handled plenty of cases firsthand where the parents were definitely the biological parents of the subject, but the actual finding didn't initially correlate with any potential logical outcome. Making significant conclusions from single data points, without considering alternatives or being educated or smart enough to even know there are alternative explanations, as reckless. I'm too young for blood typing. Safety regulations. But my brothers did it. That was the last day their classmates' parents were happily married. Turns out the dad had no idea he might not be the father. The whole thing was apparently super messy. And the mother even went so far as to name the teacher in the proceedings as one of the reasons for the divorce. Kid stood up for the teacher. Teach couldn't have known. And he ultimately ended up living with his dad at the end of it. The one he grew up with. Not biological. Unsure if bio-dad was ever found, identified. My dad adopted me as a baby when he married my mom, so I always hated these types of assignments that ask you to compare eye color, etc. to your parents. Yeah. The vast majority of biology classes no longer do any kind of genetic testing experiments. It opens up the possibility of too many questions that some people are not ready to be asked. There was a class a few hours south of us that all did 23andMe or something as part of a lab. Apparently, someone found out that they were 20% of African descent and it ended up in some kind of domestic situation that involved dad getting arrested because he was none too happy with the fact that one of his ancestors didn't share his particular bigotry. Good job. I'm an amateur genealogist and the message boards are always filled with people with confusing results and people have to delicately explain. Your teacher's method of asking about an uncle was not appropriate though. Yikes. That minefield was of his own making. This happened at my HS. They stopped doing this fun science experiment a couple years before I got to that class due to a similar unexpected result that ended in a divorce. My school had a lot of weird things that ended in legal threats, usually after someone got hurt. Science experiment ends in divorce. No cancellation for snow ever. Ended in threats of lawsuits when every single accident in our city one day was from high school students trying to get to school. After that, they'd cancel if we got a tiny amount of snow. They wouldn't excuse a student to go home sick if the nurse wasn't in. And she did rounds for several schools in the district. After a student fainted and got a severe concussion with her ears bleeding from the fall. If the nurse wasn't in the office, would flat send you home. I needed ice for my ankle from gym. But I got sent home. BC the office staff had a new hard line rule. Going from no one must leave to oh dear God, send them all home immediately. You'd think there would be lots of good malicious compliance stories from an idiotic place like this, but they really just did it to themselves. Lots of facepalms though. Remember me of a story my lecturer told me once. A girl was being very proud of herself for having either O, which is supposedly rare, or some other blood group. Can't really remember what it was, but something that made her proud and was looking down on other with the more common blood groups. Then they did this genetic maths and that girl's parents' blood group and hers didn't really match. My lecturer, who was a student too at that time, and her group member, was the one to break it to her. And she ended up crying. As someone who is also adopted. You rock. I probably would have done the exact same thing. Open mouth smile. My parents would have thought it was funny. We had a girl find out she were pregnant in my biology class in college. My mom is O and my dad was O+. I'm A+. My mom was a frequent blood donor. So I knew my dad was typed incorrectly by the Navy or I was typed incorrectly by the Red Cross. When I went to the family doctor, he tried to convince me not to be retested to avoid revealing my mom's secret. I was like, no. Either my dad or I have been typed wrong. I am 100% my dad's daughter. I look and act just like him. Dad was typed wrong by the Navy. It was a very satisfying, I told you so. Asking that question right out like that sounds like what I would do when nervous. The biology classes here stopped using the cleft chin example. A dominant trait. After a young boy realized, I have cleft chin. But my parents don't. His home life got complicated when he ran home to tell mommy and daddy what he learned in school. Teacher. Have you ever caught your mother making fuck me eyes at the mailman? He really shouldn't have been giving this assignment. Rather than try to convince him with words, which probably wouldn't have worked. You, by doing exactly as he instructed, demonstrated why he really shouldn't have been giving this assignment. Well done. And this is exactly what malicious compliance is supposed to be. This sort of thing. Biological relationship or lack thereof to your parents is or really should be private information and shouldn't be exposed in class. That's why I say he really shouldn't have been giving this assignment.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.